stories of daring escapes and of success against all odds in World War II. Today we're going to take you behind the scenes at the MacArthur Memorial and share one of these amazing stories with you. It's the story of a dramatic escape from the Philippines to Australia. And it's not the story of Douglas MacArthur's escape.
Well, today we're going to talk about the guerrilla warfare campaign in the Philippines and two of the greatest spies that worked for Douglas MacArthur in the Southwest Pacific during World War II. And these guys are Charles "Chick" Parsons, Lieutenant Commander in the United States Navy, and then Charles Smith, who was a Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Army. And these two are guys who really organized all the guerrillas in the Philippines for MacArthur's headquarters during World War II. Now, Charlie Smith was a mining engineer, and right before the war, he was on the island of Masbate in the Philippines, which is right up in here. And he was digging for gold. When the Japanese invade, they come down and they start to getting into Masbate where he is. So he's going to shift down to Panay Island where the U.S. Army is still building airfields down there. He goes down there with another engineer named Jordan Hamner. Now he goes down to Panay to build U.S. airfields down there. The Japanese, however, are going to then invade Panay, and so Charles Smith right here, he goes from Masbate down to Negros, and then finally gets down to the southernmost island of Mindanao, down here. And there he starts working for General Fort, blowing up bridges, that kind of thing. But then the Philippines fall. Now, after the surrender, Charles Smith hooks up with this guy, Wendell Furtick. Wendell Furtick will become the guerrilla leader for all of the island of Mindanao. Now, Furtick believed he was chosen by God to lead the Filipinos in this campaign, whereas Smith was like, I'm getting out of here. So he and two other people, A.Y. Smith, who was an engineer as well, and this guy named Jordan Hamner, they outfit a sailboat, and they're going to sail from Mindanao all the way down to Australia, and they get down to Darwin. This takes place in about December 1942. Now, I don't even think Charlie Smith had been in a boat before, but he had a very good compass that got him the whole way there, all through the Malacca Sea and everything, right down to Darwin. Now, as soon as Charlie Smith gets to Australia, MacArthur finds out about it. And MacArthur's like, wow, I can't believe that you sailed all the way from the Philippines to Australia, and guess what? You're going back in. And then in Australia, Charlie Smith gets introduced to Charles "Chick" Parsons. Now, Parsons had grown up in Tennessee, but at a very young age he had gone to the Philippines, and he became like the stenographer for the great Governor General Leonard Wood, who won the Medal of Honor during the Geronimo campaign. And he becomes almost a Filipino. He knows how to speak all the dialects. He knows everybody all over the islands. And when the Japanese had come into the Philippines at the beginning of World War II, he was a naval officer. But when the Japanese came in, he was also the Panamanian consul because he was a very big businessman running the Luzon stevedoring with all the shipping. So he tells the Japanese, I'm a Panamanian. And then they send him on an exchange ship back to the United States. As soon as he gets to the United States, he's like, I want to get into this war, and MacArthur is ship him out here. And so now when Smith arrives, Parsons is there as well, and MacArthur puts them on a submarine. And this is the order that he's going to send them into Mindanao to check out this guy, Wendell Furtick. As well, they're going to go in there and set up all these coast watching stations around Mindanao. Now, it's all jungle throughout the place. It's all rivers. This is the main way that you get around most places, in like a canoe banca. So it's a very primitive area they're going to, and because there's so much jungle, that's the only reason that the guerrillas are able to operate. Now, they get in there in about February of 1943. Now, as soon as they land in the southern part of Mindanao, they immediately hook up with Wendell Furtick. And that's when Charlie Smith and Chick Parsons start going all over Mindanao. Parsons trying to organize all the disparate guerrilla groups so they will all fall under this Wendell Furtick guy. While Charlie Smith is going down to the South Coast Davao area in Mindanao, where they're going to set up coast watching stations. Because this is the way they can get the U.S. Navy to really sponsor this guerrilla operation, is by getting them the information of all the Japanese shipping going out. So the more coast watching stations they can set up, the more the Navy will support them. And Parsons will even come up into Leyte and set guerrillas up there as coast watchers as well. And going around, he'll hook up with the great Islamic leader Salapita Bendatawan, who's down here in the Cotabato area. So they are really organizing all these disparate elements at that time. Now, at the same time that these guys are there going around Mindanao, down in the Davao area, there was a penal colony. And a lot of those prisoners that had been captured at the town Corregidor, gone through the death march, they were all shipped down there in late 42, where they were sent to this Davao penal colony. And while Parsons and Smith are there, 10 of them escape and make their way up to the north coast. Wendell Fertig, the guerrilla commander, finds out that they've escaped and then tells the MacArthur and the headquarters back in Australia that these guys have gotten out. MacArthur's like, yeah, I want you to get them down here. And so then it becomes the job of Parsons and Smith to get 3 of these POWs out. Now this is Melvin McCoy and Stephen Melnick and William Dias, and these are 3 of those that escaped from the penal colony, and they'll be the ones that they get out of Mindanao. Here's a bunch of pictures. Both the collections of Smith as well as Parsons were all donated to the MacArthur Memorial, and these are pictures of that group of POWs right before they left the Philippines. And the thing is, they were planning on going out, but then the Japanese invade right in the area they are in the Philippines, in Mindanao, and they then have to go into the jungle to be able to get to the south coast to meet that submarine that's going to pick them all up, and then they get lost in the jungle. And the only way that they get out is because Charlie Smith had this compass. Now, this compass was the same piece that he had used when he sailed the sailboat from Mindanao down to Darwin. And now he pulls it out in the jungle. Now, this is Charlie Smith's famous Brunton compass. It's the one that he used to sail to Australia, and then it's the one that saves all those people coming out of the jungle to get to the submarine. About 15 years ago, Charlie Smith's son, Bruce, showed up at the MacArthur Memorial and said, basically, my dad was Charlie Smith. He was a guerrilla organizer, and we were like, yes, we know exactly who he is. And the first thing we said, do you have it? And he did. And this is what we were asking about, the compass, because it is one of the most famous pieces of that story of the guerrilla war, especially for Charlie Smith and Chick Parsons, because it had such an effect on 2 major events at that time. As you can see, the compass still holds true north to this day. The submarine made it to Australia, July of 1943, and immediately MacArthur wanted to see all these people that have been brought out. The 3 prisoners, Melvin McCoy, Stephen Melnick, and William Dias, made it into MacArthur's headquarters. MacArthur definitely wanted to see them because Dias had been on the death march. It was the first that MacArthur had heard of it, and this was really the first word that the United States had gotten of the atrocities taking place in the Philippines by the Japanese. Both Parsons and Smith were ushered into MacArthur's office. He decorated them both with the Distinguished Service Cross for their service in the Philippines. Parsons also had a very good idea. In the Philippines, he would go into these villages and just hold up an empty cigarette pack, and everybody would freak out because it would be like a Lucky Strike pack. People knew it came from America, and so they knew that Parsons had actually come from them. So when he gets back to Australia, he comes up with the idea of printing up cigarette packs, sewing kits, pencils, candy, everything else that has that "I shall return" motto on it. And this is a plan that his boss, Courtney Whitney, really likes. They usher it on to MacArthur, and this is the famous memo from Whitney about how they're going to do this "I shall return" campaign, and MacArthur writes right on it, "No objection, I shall return." So this is all really brought about just because of Smith's compass. If he had never had it, he probably would have never made it to Australia in the first place, and very definitely those guys might not have made it out of the jungle.